If you don't have a good family dynamic to support you and nurture your growing phase of your spirit, your heart, you're gonna drift. But if I don't find a way or figure it out, like attempt to crawl out of the hole that I've been in my whole life, who's gonna do it for me?
Okay, we're here with the FYI podcast. We're with Mark Ellefson. So we're going to talk a little bit. Me and Mark go back. We go back many years. On this podcast, what I like to do is really meet with people, focus on people that have went from point A to point B, and how they get there. And, I've known you many years, and I've seen the change in your life, over the years. This incredible transformation. Before we get into your company here and the success stories of that, let's talk a little bit about you, where you came from. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and just who Mark is.
Well, you know a lot, but I'll go into a little bit more in depth, I suppose. I grew up in Los Angeles, California. My mom is from Mexico, so first generation here. Literally grew up in the famous city called South Central LA. So if you guys don't know where that's at, you probably heard it in all the greatest hip hop songs in the world. And I got to see and be a part of a lot of that stuff. Adversity was a huge thing, being the only white boy, güero, in the neighborhood, not understanding that I was different because I grew up in my straight Hispanic Mexican culture, and I didn't know the difference. They're like, Americano güero, and I said, who? What? So, growing up and having all those different, I call them a lot of challenges. Every school I went to in those neighborhoods was very, very tough, trying to acclimate, being the ugly duckling, I suppose, that kind of idea. Was a heavy challenge, but I didn't know any different. It was, you're in these rough neighborhoods and things are tough.
Yeah.
But it was definitely, adversity is a big thing, and I'm very I went through the tough times. You get beat up or whatever. It's been a tough journey.
Let me ask you. So I know you mentioned güero and being the white. So. But also Latino. So yeah. Are you mixed?
I'm half, yeah. And my dad's Caucasian or white, whatever you want to call it.
All right.
Yeah.
And your mom's Mexican?
Yeah, from Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah.
What part of South Central did you specifically for the Angelinos that?
The Rolling 60s. Whoa. You guys know where that's at. So if you probably go down like the Florence neighborhood, go down by Alameda, you pass that. Pretty much, if everybody remembers where the riot started back in the 90s,
right?
I was a few blocks from that whole.
Wow!
Beginning.
So like the Rodney King,
yeah, yeah.
And let's talk about that generation. I mean, for the people who remember that, I mean, I know the younger generation, they have to look that up on YouTube. But the Rodney King riot. So you're living in South Central at the time. Yeah. Your father and mother were together.
Yeah.
So he's white. Your mom's Hispanic. Yeah. And how was the household? Was it English in the household? Was it a little bit of both?
It was heavy Spanish because we lived with my grandma and my aunt.
Okay.
And everybody only spoke Spanish, so my English was very broken as a child. Like they're like, "Where is this kid from? Are you from Jalisco or where the fair-skinned Mexicans are?"
Like Guadalajara.
They're like, no, nobody speaks English in my household.
And your dad speaks Spanish too?
Yeah, my dad's fluent. My dad's red hair, blue-eyed, and he's just been in the culture for his whole life. So heavy.
Interesting.
Everybody says, dude, he speaks better than you. And I'm like, I don't know. I speak the LA broken English and Spanglish kind of thing, to make it work. So He was literally the only white boy in all Hispanic Chicano schools or all black school. Wow. And the one red, and it was red hair. Like you can see him a mile away.
Like a straight Irishman, but it kind of makes me think of that movie American Me. Like you had the one white guy that was from and your dad kind of more hung out with Mexican
that
culture,
was his,
Mexican gangs, if I could say.
He was kind of the square that wanted to be in the military and be a cop when he grew up. So, he was in the ROTC program and kind of was the square. He never smoked a pot in his life.
Okay.
He's just been like
so he grew up in a culture but didn't get involved in street stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. So he meets your mom.
Yep. Echo Park.
In Echo Park. Okay, when Echo Park was still Echo Park.
Yeah.
That's cool. And okay, I'm just getting this actually stuff I didn't know about you. So this is cool just doing this because I've known you forever but I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I won't go into so they meet. So that's interesting. So your father's white but from LA, kind of ingrained in the Chicano culture.
Yeah.
He's around it. Meet your mom.
Yep.
And so you're raised in the South Central area. When did you start moving over towards the Downey area? That's when I met you later.
Yeah. So by the time my mom got remarried, and around 10 or 11 or so, we bought a house with my new stepfather in Southgate in Holydale. So that was borderline Downey. That's how we all kind of meshed. But yeah.
So your parents split. I know just for a matter of time because so they split and so you come from South Central. Now you're in the Holydale area, which still has some rough areas, but it's kind of now it's. I mean I know the area well. So so you get stepfather, and is your stepfather good? You guys get along? Or?
It was a very interesting family situation. The guy had, unfortunately had a lot of personal issues that he needed. The new stepdad comes in, totally tries to make me be him when he was, the high school football star.
Right.
And the macho guy, and I'm just this nerdy little white kid, Wedo, trying to fit in. So we kind of just created this separation. And as I became more isolated as a kid, then I got into music. Well, I was already in music. Yeah. But then I found punk rock when I was 13 years old.
Did music give you an outlet? And was it punk rock music that gave you this outlet to be around other outcasts? Or?
Yeah. So by the time my parents split up when 8 or 9 or something, I found rock and roll. It was Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Ozzy Osbourne. And I was like, holy jeez, what's this? And I went down the rabbit hole because of all the emotional and the things that I was going through with the family separation. That was the thing I clung to, and it became my outlet, my salvation at that time, And I remember my first show, I just got hooked. It was dude, this is insane. What did I just witness?
What was the feeling? Adrenaline? Was it release?
It was nerves because it was something new. Mm-hmm. It was raw, and the energy behind that was something that if you get it, you get it, and when you go to it and you're part of it, it's one of the most beautiful things. And making lifelong friends through it, till today. Nobody judged you necessarily. Nobody cared. It was dude, let's go get drunk and have fun and let it all out.
How did that start affecting your life? Was it, all positive? Did anything get negative as a teenager now? You're rocking out, you're drinking, you're smoking, you're mosh pitting. How did that, tell me a little bit about Mark, high school Mark. Was there trouble?
There's a lot of trouble attached to everything. If you don't have a good family dynamic to support you and nurture your growing phase of your spirit, your heart, you're gonna drift, and it could go into a very wrong place because kids are very susceptible. They're very easily influenced.
Yeah.
So all the kids at that age are trying to find their voice. They're trying to explore and discover life and make sense of it. And when you get drugs and alcohol and other kids that are going through really, really bad things, they're bringing it to you. And then you're just kind of, swimming in this pool of everybody's stuff.
Yeah.
Not to say that punk rock is bad. It was more the people or the person I was at that age and all the things around me, how it became kind of a painful time of my life. Not saying it wasn't the music, it was me at that time. It was you.
What specifically, if that whatever you're comfortable to share?
Yeah.
What specifically stands out for you? That really was dangerous and dark and.
Well, Like, I know that my stepfather, he was very insecure and very, like, machismo, right? He told my mother this. He goes, your son looks too much like your ex-husband, right? Like my father. Mm-hmm. Duh, obviously.
Yeah.
But he felt insecure of her being affectionate towards me because it might trigger an emotion or a memory for my mom to be like, oh, the dad, right? And so mom has to keep the breadwinner happy. I know she kind of created this cushion or a gap in between us. Huh. On an emotional side, kids need that nurturing, right? So if you don't get it from mother and father, now I don't have the mom, I don't have the dad. Now my real father's somewhere, like, you know. So what do? You're like, I'm alone, like literally in this world. And that's how it segued into like the punk thing. You know, once you find those friends that are struggling with their own pain, however, we band, like we just connect. And that bond of friendship has been lifelong, you know, and it's changed. We're not in that same place. We've all done a lot of healing and a lot of growth, but that was probably that painful era. I think as a kid, you know, you're just, dude, I don't know what to do. When I was young, I remember telling her, I was like 6 years old, I think. And I told her, Mom, I'm depressed. And she goes, how do you know what that word even means? You know? And I said something like, I don't want to live like this. Like, I can't keep living like this. And I had a heavy soul, like a heavy heart.
Wow.
I don't know if I came into the world like this or I learned it just from what I witnessed with the traumatic stuff. But my mom goes, we don't talk to anybody about our problems. And I'm like, I need a shrink.
Yeah.
You know? And she goes, Culturally, it was like, no, you zip it, you bottle it up, and then deal with it, right? But now we all know it's like, no, you gotta vent, you gotta do healing, you gotta get help, because that's where kids do go through suicide or addictions and all that stuff. Yeah. So I went down my rabbit hole. Okay, now I have outcast friends, and we're all struggling with our own emotional instability from all the trauma and the that we've been through, and that's where drugs and alcohol come in. And to supplement the pain that you're feeling, you know, as kids, you don't know anything better. Yeah. It's like, I'm gonna go to church, or I'm gonna go find a shrink. You're like, dude, how do you even get there? Yeah. So a lot of human beings they cope with their own, emotions a certain way.
So you mentioned, darkness and suicide, and it leads a lot of people. Is that something you dealt with? Did you attempt?
I went, no real attempts, but it was more for many, many years.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I was like, dude, this life sucks. Yeah. Like, how am I supposed to live this way? Wow. Till I'm 80 or whatever. I'm like, how do people deal with this? But it was just me. I'm like, dude, I can't continue doing this.
No, that's interesting. Let's stay on that, because there's a lot of people that can relate to that. So you start acting out.
Yeah.
And now you're drinking. You found the friends. People are going through the same stuff. So, no one's really talking about what you're going through, but you're partying.
High school, I wasn't a good student. I fell behind. I got kicked out of school a bunch because I was living in a different city, going to school in Downey. Okay. So I'm like, I was in the Paramount High School district. That school was so bad. It was like every single passing period, there was a fist fight. I'm like, how is this possible?
Yeah, this is the 90s, right?
Yeah, 99.
99, yeah, oh yeah.
And there was a bunch of race wars and all that stuff, and kids dying and whatever. And I'm like, I told my mom, if I have to go to school here next year, that's where all the big kids, because they isolated the freshmen in a separate campus. I said, the big kids are over there, and that's where the real crazy gangsters are and all the drama. I said, I'm going to drop out of school. This is my freshman year.
Was that Columbus?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I went to Columbus, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fine academy. But, I think it's natural. I myself also have moved around my whole life as a kid. Nothing was ever stable. You're now starting to hang out with other misfits, and you found an outlet with music. Did you start now getting into playing? Because I know you're a musician today.
Yeah.
Is this where it started?
Yeah, at the end, it was more, well, during that whole high school time, it was like the interest, the common interest. We all love music, or our small group, a handful of friends. Can you play this? Can you play that? Let's try to start a band. And we just got busy. We formed bands and started playing parties, backyard shows or whatever. And
what was that like as you started to develop a skill for playing?
When you're a kid, you're like 15 years old, you're like, or 16, you're like, oh, I suck, I don't know nothing, but it's punk rock and let's just go play. Our first show, the confidence that was built from that, you're like, oh my God, we're popular, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be well known or recognized, and to do it amongst a band of misfits and rejects in life, right? You're like, dude, I found my voice, I found my power, I found my clan, my group of people. And then it became this, we have to go to every show, we have to try to play every show. Networking, you're just building friends so quick. You found the common interest with other people outside from your little, neighborhood. And it was like the most beautiful thing, because overnight you're like, oh, dude, I'm not alone in this world. There's other people like me, and we actually get along. I don't have to try to fit in, and nobody's going to mess with me, or if they do, I'm going to fight them, or, and settle it then, and it doesn't really continue from there, and it was a pure, raw, organic time, and that scene, and I think everybody goes through it, during that time of their life. It was amazing. My first show, we played at this little tiny hole-in-the-wall place, and I remember hearing everybody in the crowd singing the song. Wow. And I didn't write the music. I was the kid in the crowd back in the late 90s, watching. But to be performing it now, it was the most surreal thing. And I said, holy crap, this is insane. It's always just the craziest, enlightenment that you'll experience. That's one of the platforms. For everybody else, it could be whatever they do and they connect with,
Drinking. Let's get into drinking. Yeah. So now I meet you after my military service. So we didn't grow up together as kids. I meet you, I'm going to say you had to be 24, maybe. And it was like you would throw the best backyard party. So it's like 100 people in the backyard. Your mom and grandma are like part of the party.
Oh yeah, so bad.
Completely. What's great is they completely look like just normal Mexican women. Yeah. They're like, hey, mijo. We're eating, and then in the backyard, it's like 100 leathered out mohawk. Dude, I couldn't believe the amount you guys drank. Yeah. I'm sober already at this point in my life. I think at this point I'm like 8 years in sobriety or something. You guys are knocking out. I mean, you guys drank, man. Yeah. Your transformation to me stands out the most because you've become the family man and got the children and the homeowner and the business with 30 employees. And let me simplify this for the audience. Like, for anybody out there who's young that might watch this podcast, it's like, this was the group. And when I mean young teenagers, but I also mean people in their 20s, this was the group of, like, I'm not exaggerating, these mohawks and leather jackets and people vomiting and drinking so much liquor in one night. I used to go, dude, you're going to die. So this is the world that Mark's living in. I meet you then. I'm coming out of the military. I'm blown away by this whole environment. Backyard parties, rock, concerts. When did you make the decision, I can't live like this anymore, and I want to start swaying into where you're at today?
So I think my early 20s, we left all the violence. We were fighting every single weekend, sometimes twice a night, because we fight one place, get kicked out, and then go fight another place. So I think the last time I played a show with my old band, the singers picked a fight with the crowd. Somebody pulled a pipe out and, busted my buddy's singer's head open. And I'm like, dude, this isn't my fight. They were mad at me because I didn't jump in and fight back. But I said, you guys are doing the wrong things, right? It's not about, what are we doing? So that was a time where I left that night and I'm like, I'm done playing music.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I quit at like 24, 23 or something like that. And my life had already been kind of the emotional rock bottom where I was like, dude, I can't live like this, right? And from that moment is where I said, there has to be more. And I could go down a rabbit hole, but for the sake of time, I said, I can't live like this. I'm going to die. And I don't want to live old and be an old man suffering from all this crap. So I started getting into the personal development world and started buying books and audiobooks and whatever I could get my hand on to change my thinking process and do some healing at that time. And so I stopped hanging out with everybody and started making changes, that led into me meeting my wife and starting the family. And
at this point in life, I got to make a change.
Yeah.
It's a change you wanted. You're not like crapping on punk rock and music. There was a time for it. There was a love that would get you because you play again, but different. Yeah. So you had an outlet in life for anybody out there, but now you're at a place, you're at a crossroads. I need to change. I need to do something. Now, some people don't have that, right? I know people our age, people in their 50s, they still haven't figured it out. Like, they don't know they need to change. You knew I need to change, but how do I do it?
Yeah.
So what you found was self-help.
Yep.
And then you busted your butt to be able to make the money to go get the books and read. Yeah. Okay, so now you're doing that. You're feeling better. You're finding a purpose. You meet your wife. Yeah. How'd that happen?
We used to train at a martial arts gym. She came to my gym and wanted to train for a competition. And I used to be somewhat decent at, Muay Thai, the sport, the fighting art. And so, naturally people want to talk to you or train with you or whatever. And I was like, oh, there's a pretty girl in here. I'm like, nope, I need to stay focused. I want to move up in the ranks and go compete professionally and travel the world and all that. And she kept trying to say, let's go watch the fights this weekend. And I'm like, nope, I know what's going to happen if I go out with you, it's over. And then my coach kept going, dude, go out with her. You never know what'll happen. I'm like, no, man, I know what's going to happen. We're going to start dating. We're going to fall out of training and you're going to lose both of us. And I'm going to fall in love and then sail off into the sunset, And
But did you really want that deep down? Because you went on the date eventually.
I'm a young 24-year-old, 25-year-old.
Okay.
You get a good-looking girl in the gym that you're rolling around with, and that springs the flirtiness. So it was more like, well, I said, dude, it's done. First night I go out there, I did the old Marky Mark romancing, and that was it. That was 13 years ago.
Wow. So you guys go out on one date and you knew that's the one.
Yeah, we hit it off. And
you knew before. That's why you were scared to go on the date. You're like, man, this is going to be it. Okay, cool. So you guys go out and now your wife is, she's a beast, savage. I mean, in the gym, she's a fitness guru. I mean, she's a competitive. Tell us about that. Tell us about the marriage. You have kids.
We started a very quick life together. So that window from us starting the date and falling in love and all that stuff probably lasted less than 6 months before she gets pregnant.
Wow, nice.
So at that time, it was like 2010. The economy was already bottomed out from the last recession. And I'm working my last job, my last mom and pop company. And then he lays me off 2 months after I find out she's pregnant. I'm like, dude, what the heck am I going to do? I told her, hey, you got to move out of Hermosa Beach and come to Southgate. Because I'm going to start a business and I'm going to support us this way. I said, I have to start a business because nobody was hiring. I couldn't get a job anywhere. And my only fallback was start your own thing and start hustling, right? And I told myself, I said, all the adversity that I grew up with, and I'm probably going to have another little white kid, like a fair skin. And I'm like, I don't want to have her go through the heavy challenges that I did necessarily in the same neighborhood, pretty much, or, area. I go, I have to be the one that's good, because nothing was given to me. Like, I grew up in poverty, I grew up in the welfare system and all that. And, I said, dude, if I don't make that happen, and I have no idea how, but if I don't find a way or figure it out, like attempt to crawl out of the hole that I've been in my whole life, who's going to do it for me? And from that point, I said, hey, this is going to be the hardest thing I ever do, because I'm going to break the chains, our generational chains of poverty and addiction and all that stuff, and find a way out. And I said, if you're patient, this one, she's pregnant. I said, if you're patient and you stay with me through this very challenging journey, it will pay off. Nothing great in life comes
easy, right?
So I started knocking on doors. I printed, the cheapest business cards that I could. I called everybody I knew. I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. If you had a pulse, I'm giving you a business card and I'm talking to you. Every single person around that I could get a hold of. Little by little, I started generating business. And, that was over 12 years ago.
How did you go, and this is what for people listening, how do you go from not knowing how to run a business, but you have an idea, to making that happen? So I'm saying not just mentally, did you have to take a loan? And you don't have to get into specifics but did you have to get a loan? Did you do a business plan? Did you just go, you know what, I'm just going to knock on doors and fix stuff. I got my tools. And did you start saving? How did you learn to run a business like this with 30 plus employees, multiple trucks? How does somebody go from being an hourly laborer to a boss?
Everybody goes, Mark, you're so smart. And because you built this, right? We have a multi-million. We're probably going to do 8 million in sales this year, right? They're like, "How you're so smart?" And I go, "Dude, I can barely read. I don't even know how to turn on my computer." But when I was young, I heard something so profound that stuck with me. I believe Henry Ford was going to court for something. They're trying to, nail him to the cross over something. Henry Ford says, all I'd have to do, if you have a specific question, I have a row of buttons here that I push one button and I call for the right person to bring me the answer, or whatever it is that you're asking for me. So he smacked him with that. And I'm like, that's true. I still can't read properly. I think I'm dyslexic. But that's the thing. It's a higher level of thinking and understanding. I don't need to be the best at this, but I need to find the right people and support them in their journey working with me, so that they can have success. 7 Habits, you got to have a win-win process or situation, or there's no deal. Because if the person's not winning, you're never going to grow. You have to give the other people that are working with you the opportunity, so that you all both can go to the top together.
Yeah.
So going back in that day, I didn't know anything. All I knew was, what's the quickest way of generating cash, right? Okay, talk to everybody, knock on doors, give them this. And little by little, when you compound that with heavy consistency, right? Like, you make it your life mission. That, you give yourself a decade, dude. How do I make $10 million or $8 million in sales and revenue? It's not from my marketing efforts.
Yeah.
It's literally the compounded effect from day one that is paying me massive dividends today, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, how is your marketing investment literally so small? It's the smallest I've ever seen. I go, it's the method of business that I've created in the beginning.
The reputation, the
constant, output. So, people want to have, I want to be successful. I want to make all this money. But I'm like, what is your decision? Like, you have to decide what it is that you want, so that when you know it and it's clear that you want this, your alignment has to be, your energy has to be in alignment, your thought process.
All you need to do is know how to hire people around you that do that. Right. And if I come in and say, hey, I want it to look like this, I am hiring proficient people to get me that light. I want it to sound like this. So what you're saying is pure leadership. It's right from what I'm getting. It's knowing how to surround yourself with people that get the job done.
Yeah. I learned a massive lesson that cost me, I just found a hole that cost me probably a couple $100,000 this last year, right? Wow. $200,000. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I said, where am I losing money? So I start digging, and I'm like, oh, it's a lapse or a gap in leadership. But I learned the biggest lesson, right? In leadership, everybody wants to be a boss, like you said, but because they think you don't have to put the work in.
Right.
Real leaders are going to show and lead from the front, right? Not saying you have to do it forever, but lead from the front. Number one, set your standard for what you guys are doing, right? The expectation standard. Next, implement, push, go, so your team can go knock it out around the standard, the expectation.
Yeah.
And always follow up. To make sure, do we hit the deadline? Are we on budget? Or do we hit our goals? Whatever the case is. But always follow up. And make sure when you're hiring for leadership positions that it's the right person. Because the wrong people in the wrong seats could totally disrupt the entire business. And I found the loophole that I was like, all right, I'm going to put my boots back on, literally. Took off this, put on a plumber outfit, ran around for the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I said, okay, lack of leadership created this. Lack of my clarity to, whoever was available, and I didn't follow up, created this gap. That costs a lot of money. I said, oh, okay, easy fix. Yeah, I lost a lot of money. What you learn, right?
Yeah.
And the most powerful, John Maxwell, the biggest leadership coach, wrote a book called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. Okay? And you take full responsibility. You talk about the powerful leadership people in the world, Goggins and Jocko, talk about extreme ownership. It's like, well, what am I going to do when something burns down? Because my people did it. Do I blame them? No. Dude, own that stuff. Own it and say, I messed up because I failed as a leader here.
Yeah.
Right? And so I put on my big boy pants and I went and led and I acted as the example. I was the example. And I said, this is a standard. And now you guys all understand clarity. Now let's execute, right? And literally within 2 weeks, the entire business changed.
Wow.
Because of a lack of leadership and clarity, right? And that's where I needed to grow as an employer, as a person, because I didn't want to be the nice guy or not be the nice guy.
Yeah.
So now it's like, hey, they'll respect you more if you set the expectation and you support them at the highest level as a leader. And they're going to say, dude, if he's doing this for us, we got to show up and over deliver as well.
Yeah.
Now, ultimately, you create that culture. It's a win-win for everybody because now we're making more money. We brought all the money in. We're not delayed. We're under budget. I'm like, cool. You guys get bonuses. The customers are happy because now their house is back and restored, operationally. And now we're not stressing. I'm like, guys, that's all I wanted. But if you don't lead them, they won't push it. So
yeah, and it's natural, right? Like you said, and that goes for anything. That's that reset, right? And it's going in, owning it. It's that conservative kind of mentality too, right? Like let me. I don't mean that so much in a political conservative. I'm saying like let me jump back in and adjust this, which you have. So. Before I close out, you've given us some gems here today. Just as a quick overview, we've talked about where you grew up, how you grew up, dealing with fears as a young person, insecurities, finding a subgenre of friends and outcasts, finding your passion of music through that, going through some rebel times, all the way into making a decision to make a change to better yourself and pursuing the avenues to do that. So it's not just making a decision. You decided I want to change, and then you found out how can I change. You found that in you know, the whole Tony Robbins, well, you know, just self-help, and meet the wife, got the family, started the company. Close us out with what life looks like today for Mark. I mean, the wife, the kids, the family, the business, and just, I also want you to tell us, how's that Mark inside? That kid that was living in fear and I mean, for crying out loud, your father works for your company now.
Yeah.
I mean, how awesome is that, man? That you have a multi-million-dollar company and you were able to bring your father and give him a job, and give him purpose in his older years. I mean, this is powerful stuff, man. So I want to know about that right now. I know, again, that's a compound question, but close us out with that.
Thank you. I've done a lot of healing. I've done a lot of spiritual and neuroscience understanding training. You know, I got trained and certified. I'm a practitioner in hypnosis, NLP, and timeline therapy. So I've done a lot of the back end stuff to understand how to forgive, right? Because you got to go into the old traumas to rewire the emotion with the experience, so that you don't feel the pain. You don't bring it forward with it, you know, from any triggers. So I've learned, and I've gone through the support and forgiving and healing Mark. So I don't carry that weight anymore, right? It's been a transformational experience. People that haven't seen me in more than, 12, 15 years are like, that's not the same guy. And I said, well, it was life or death if I didn't change. So during this whole journey, I've been sober the last 3 years, decided to quit drinking. So my world has completely changed it, and my relationship with my daughters and my wife has been something that I've only dreamt of, because if we didn't change addictions, we would repeat all of our parents' generational. And so I'm very grateful and I'm humble for it, for, not that I'm a badass for quitting, but that I am experiencing life from that decision, and how I've been able to transform and, build business, find the happiness in cultivating our marriage, and, being a father, having our home, our safe, place that we've all dreamt of. Everything has changed completely. And all I do now is really say, how can I influence other people to find that peace, right? Because when you're dealing with drugs and alcohol and you're constantly in recovery state, it's hard to go create your future that you want, because you're not in alignment vibrationally and with your thoughts. It's going to go over. It's never going to happen. Then you're going to find more pain, like, I could never do this, right? And understanding your brain, how it processes what you say and what you're thinking, and how it creates, or you create, but based on your thinking process, like, no, you could hack it, and you could start creating and believing in certain things and actually doing what you want.
Yeah.
But it has to come from a place, where you have the ultimate recovery in the spirit side and the healing. Because everything else, fulfillment and money is not happiness. Okay? I've made a lot, I've lost a lot. I've learned this. I said, what is it? It's being present and in gratitude, right? Because I could be grateful when I had nothing, literally, homeless one day to the next with a brand new baby, or now with whatever we've built, and have now. I'm like, if you're not grateful, if you're not present, and you cannot find being present, nothing will be relevant. Nothing will give you fulfillment or happiness. The moment that you can stop and say, dude, I'm grateful for the people that I have in my life as a friend, giving me time to talk and reminisce, or the people that work for the company. I'm like, dude, I bow to them and I say, I'm grateful for you, not because I'm making money off you, but because of the experience, the opportunity that we get to harmonize and create beautiful things together, right?
Yeah.
Because we complement each other. So find gratitude in where you're at right now. But that's the hardest part. People are living in the future. I want what that guy has on Instagram, the cars and the girls and the money.
Right.
And then their past is dragging them down emotionally, spiritually. If you could learn how to separate the two and then say, okay, what am I grateful for now? It opens up a lot more for you to say, well, now I'm going to set my sights here and take baby steps to work for my goal, towards my goal. That's the part a lot of people miss. There's a gap. There's a process.
I love that, man.
But if you don't take it, if you don't understand it, you're going to repeat the cycle constantly. And I've been fortunate that I did the work, you know. I'm blessed. I'm like, dude, it's like taking a horse to drink. You can't make them drink, right?
Right.
But to water, but you can't make them drink. Everybody has it, but do they want to put that work in?
Yeah, I think that's a money spot to close. Everybody has it, but do you want to put the work in? I am a firm believer in that. I think Will Smith said that. He said, "I'm not the most talented actor. I'm not the most talented at anything." He said, "But I have a sickening desire to be better than you." And he said, if you put me on a treadmill and another man next to me, I will run until I die. I will never hit stop until I die.
That's right.
Or until he does first. Yeah. And he said, that's all I have. He goes, my successes, all the things I've done is just pure desire to be the best I can. Yeah. And I think that Eric Thomas also says, you know, if you want it as bad as you want to breathe, you got to want it as bad as you want to breathe. Oh, yeah. And when you want it like that, you will 100% get it. These aren't like made up things, you know, and you're living proof of that, man. Yeah. And I want to commend you. And you told Angela, we won't be in Southgate long, and you were a man of your word. You guys have a beautiful home. You're homeowners. You got beautiful children, marriage, a business. You have come a long way, my friend. I'm honored to sit here with you. Thank you for doing this. And I love the books, by the way. Have you read any of those books?
Yeah.
I love the painted library. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. FYI Podcast. This is a podcast where we seek out to find people from all walks of life. It doesn't matter whether you own a plumbing company, whether you're working at McDonald's, or whether you're Michael Jordan. We want to interview everybody. We want to find out what is your motivation to follow your inspiration, and when did you find that inspiration? One last thing, closing. Mark does still perform in a band, and we'll put information on that as well on this, and because we did kind of leave that out. He actually still loves music and does it. We kind of brushed over that, but thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
You should never stress about the problems you be facing. Everybody in the mud on the struggle trying to make it. Look into the mirror and you see the motivation. Then you step into the world and you find your inspiration. I'm finding inspiration, and once I get a hold of it, I'll never get complacent. Look into the mirror and you see the motivation. Then you step into the world and you find your inspiration.